Coming up on this week's show.
Advertise the BBC. Get rid of it. I mean, you could have Omega. You could have brought him back as a dead horse. I wouldn't mind a Doctor Who Star Trek crossover event. Star Trek Strange New Worlds, the movie, and have Doctor Who in there. They go to the Doctor Who universe.
We're probably going to get some angry comments on that. Welcome to Not Another Who podcast. I'm your host, Sam Morrell.
And I'm Christopher Hyde.
How are we doing, Christopher?
Well.
Been a long time. That's why we took a 2-week break.
Honest, has it actually been 2 weeks? Let me just see. It has literally.
2 weeks tomorrow.
2 weeks tomorrow from this recording date.
Today is Friday the 13th.
Oh. Unlucky. Or lucky.
What a day to come back.
Depending on how you view the 13th of, if you think that if you think the number 13 is lucky, great. If not, in terms of Doctor Who, it's definitely an odd number. 13. Didn't want to start off with controversy, and I've already mentioned the Whittaker era. But today we aren't going in the Whittaker era. We are going to talk about our thoughts of the Ncuti Gatwa era, aren't we?
The Gatwa era.
When he was first announced to come back, what was your thoughts?
I was very excited for him to come back. I thought, since he left, he was doing some pretty good stuff, writing-wise. And I thought he could bring that new energy to Doctor Who. It kind of didn't work out that way, really, did it?
This is the problem, is because as we're going to talk about Gatwa's era, it started off really strong in terms of announcing. Well, the announcement of RTD, followed by the announcement that David Tennant was coming back.
Yeah.
And they had the old production team, and everything was strong in that regard because, it was the team that started New Who all those years ago. Mm-hmm. It was the main, the most prolific Doctor of that era.
Yeah.
Coming back, but I think the warning signs were there. It's just we weren't clued into it. We weren't focused on it.
Yeah.
Because with RTD coming back, and his first sort of press for that was saying that he wanted to do a Marvel style Doctor Who franchise, interconnected stories and expanding the Who-niverse, and all of that was welcome. But what we've seen is complete 180 over the past 2 years, maybe even 3 years. Though I feel like the 60th specials are a different beast to tackle, a star beast, you might say. So I think when I first heard the news, I was ecstatic. But the warning signs were there because this is the main thing for me is to sum up the disaster, to put the disaster of the Shooty era into macro. I think the one word that screams, you know, that is the main problem is nostalgia. Do you agree?
Yeah. Bringing back David Tennant, yeah, it kind of makes sense because it was the 60th anniversary.
The Celestial Toy Maker.
Yeah, and I thought they'd once they gotten out of that, got the 3 specials out the way, I thought they'd go with something a bit more fresh,
like clean slate.
Yeah, clean slate from the nostalgic parts of the previous era when RTD came back.
Yeah, because I mean, Russell going in didn't say. I mean, he ruled out the return of the Daleks and the Master, and I think he said the Cybermen as well.
I think they should have had a Dalek story, maybe a Cyberman story, but that's it.
Yes. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with bringing back the Daleks, as long as you've got a good story to tell with them. You know?
Yeah. And not just bringing them back for the sake of it, you know? Bringing back villains that are, you know, like, they haven't appeared in, like, 40, 50 years. That was a bit of a mistake. And RTD did go on record to say he didn't like the Rani. I don't know where the interview was conducted. Probably like Doctor Who magazine or something.
I think wasn't it in a commentary. Was it not in a commentary track? One of the old, either one of the old ones or one of the recent ones, like the Giggle or something. I think he was talking to someone, just like, you know, riffing off, and I think they got into the conversation of bringing back old characters, and I think he was like, "Oh no, I wouldn't want to bring back the Rani because, you know, it's just the Master in a wig."
Yeah.
Well, not wig because it's a woman, but you get the gist.
Yeah.
But that's where I think he fundamentally misunderstands the Rani. The Rani is nothing like the Master. Yes, okay, she's in 2 of the least, you know, the least favourable Doctor Who stories of the classic era. I mean, you could make a case for the Colin Baker one, but especially the McCoy one is awful. Even though I like it, I've got a soft spot for
Time in the Rani.
Time in the Rani. Yeah. I mean, it's just fun, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think bringing back Sutek, bring back the Rani, and bring back Omega and Susan. Let's be honest, that's another sort of. We'll touch on that later, but bringing back those big 3 villains and then underutilizing them, and sort of it's for me, it's that poison dart of nostalgia. Pardon pun. I can understand bringing back villains. You know, I think it would be interesting to see what you could do with some classic villains. You know, the Kinder, the snake,
Amara.
That's the one, Amara. I was thinking, I was like, Kinder, snake, what's it called? And for some reason, Tamara, you know, the name Tamara was in my head, so I wasn't far off. But like, that would be a good villain to bring back, because I feel like with modern technology, there's more you could do with that.
Yeah.
And the same with Omega. Omega is a good villain to bring back because he's an entity.
Just not the way they brought him back.
No, not as a mummified corpse. I mean, if any, that was more of a. I see it as more of an indirect reference to the state of the show. I mean, you could have Omega. You could have brought him back as a dead horse, and then that would have been even more closer to the metaphor of the show. You know, going back to like the beginning of Shooty's era with like the Giggle and the Church on Ruby Road, there was a glimmer of something special. Obviously, the bi-generation stuff, I feel like, did ruin his character because there wasn't enough for him to be on his own. It wasn't. It was him and Tennant, and it should have just been him. Really, I like the idea of bi-generation, but I think it would have made more sense to use it for a story purpose, or you know, an actual like plot purpose than just let's do something that the audience isn't expecting. I think the Gods and Monsters, I don't know whether it's going to carry on into season 3 or whatever happens, because we don't know yet.
I kind of hope not. I think it's basically ran its course.
Problem is, it ran out of steam before it could be properly explained, and it was always very vague.
Yeah.
For me. Like, it was like there's no rules to what the Pantheon is, there's no setup. It would have been cool if there was like a mural of the gods and we could have seen glimpses of who they could be, and then they pop up, you know. But it was literally just like, here's a god, da da da.
The god of da 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 da. You know, the god of Ragnarok.
They had already been in the show before, so out of all the and the Enlightenment, the Eternals,
that story, by the way.
Enlightenment. I mean, I was thinking about covering it because of the whole gods and Shooty era thing, because even that story establishes these eternal beings as fallible creatures, you know. So it's like Doctor Who has always dabbled in that gods and mythos, but the way RTD wanted to do it was, I want to do it by my rules. I don't care if the audience gets confused. And I feel like that's a bad, you know, a bad thing, because it's treating your audience with disrespect, really.
Yeah. Again, bringing back old villains, they have to do like their homework before they watch the episode, and I just don't think it's fair for new viewers, basically. Yeah,
especially when you're setting it up as like a soft reboot, as like a you know, Shooty's era was meant to be like a new dawn for Doctor Who.
That's why they resetted the number in of season 1, season 2.
Even though we had two fresh starts before, because Capaldi's last season was meant to be a reset. You know,
with the pilot.
Yeah, and the whole concept of his series was, let's take the Doctor back to its core root.
Yeah.
You know, old man, young companion, travel through space.
Yeah, I wish they went in that direction. Series 10 went, and even season 7 of Classic Who. Just grounded it on Earth.
Season 11, series 11, that was another soft reboot, reset.
Yeah, and I've had
Enslaved.
so many soft reboots over the last 7-8 years. I'm like, how many more do you have to do?
And the problem is, I feel like with the fact that, like, I don't buy for a second that what Shooty and Russell have said, that this was planned from the start, because there was no cohesion. There was nothing tying Shooty's era up. It was just it was always left. So, there's rumors that Millie Gibson was meant to be in season 2, and it was meant to just be Shooty and Millie as the two leads. But I think it was after season 1 had shot, there were reports that Millie was upset with the behind the scenes shenanigans, or there was something going on behind the scenes that we're not going to know for at least a decade. Maybe less, maybe more, but we're not going to know fully the ins and outs. But there's some reason why Millie didn't want to come back fully for season 2. And I think really that should have just been write her out completely, do something else. Because bringing her back in season 2 actually made it slightly worse. For me, because Lucky Day is just a filler episode full of nothing burger episode. Wishworld had great concepts but didn't follow through, or wasn't confident enough to pull those concepts off. And then you've got the Reality War, which is literally, it is just a mess from start to finish. It's not even halfway through. From start to finish, it's a complete mess.
Oh, and she didn't even get a goodbye at the end of Reality War.
The thing is, she didn't get a send-off. That is obviously a production issue, but also there wasn't really anything to send off.
No.
There was rumors that Poppy was meant to be actually Desiderium was meant to be Ruby, and then Ruby leaves herself by the church and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, but if there was a coherent plan and you didn't stick to it because you wussed out at the last minute, then you're servicing no one. You're not supplying anyone with. There's no reason why people should tune in to a half-baked show. You expect quality. If you're going to trim your episodes down, you expect the quality to go up, not down. And there was also the fact that with the 8-episode format, they were still 45-minute episodes, which meant that some episodes felt a bit too long, but then some episodes felt a bit too short. There were some episodes that the concept ran out before it could be really wrapped up. Let's say
Reality War.
Reality War, yeah. I was going to go, I think 73 Yards had a good concept, but it didn't, again, it wasn't too confident. Devil's Cord, that could have done with an extra 15 minutes, and that would have been a lot better.
This 45-minute format does not work anymore. They're just like cramming it all in. With like other streaming shows, they go into like 1 hour, 1 hour 10 kind of territory. They don't really care what the time frame is.
Well, if you look at Marvel shows, for example, the kind of thing that RTD was trying to emulate. Marvel shows have a weird runtime where some episodes are like half an hour and some episodes are like an hour and a half. Or like it doesn't make any sense, because with Marvel shows you can have an episode that's 25 minutes long, and then the next episode after it is like a half hour, 45-minute or an hour long episode. So the run times on streaming, because streaming isn't caught by the broadcast schedule,
Yeah.
streaming has the advantage to go, you want to watch an hour-long show? Go ahead. You want to watch half an hour? Go ahead.
Yeah, basically, it's like a 8-hour movie, and
That is what
feel,
shows are.
yeah, I feel Doctor Who needs to move with the times and become a lot more like serialized and have like one story throughout.
Well, it's good. It's
Or-
funny you say that because, like, I was thinking about this at least 5 or 6 years ago, that the runtime format could have been extended and you wouldn't have lost any viewers. In fact, more people would be interested because you can at least have an hour to explore the ins, the outs, and the roundabouts.
or even a couple of like a 4-part story, then a 3-part story in one series, maybe. Just to
I don't know, because if it's 8 episodes, you're literally having 1 or 2 big stories.
Yeah.
And if you did 8 episodes and they were all 2-parters.
Yeah, you could do that. I know you don't like this series, but Series 9, I like that kind of model with a 2-parter here, 1 there, 3, 2, you know.
Well, I think I can, even though I don't necessarily like the episodes themselves, I can respect the fact that they were trying something new and different and unique.
Yeah.
And that was a good experimental thing to do with the series at that point.
Did Series 10 go in that direction as well?
No, you had 1 3-parter, 1 2-parter, and I think the rest were like, because you had the Eaters, not Eaters of the Pyramid trilogy.
Yeah, the Pyramid trilogy. I'm
And
blind.
then you had and then
I'm blind.
you had.
Open the door. Can't. Why can't you? Because I'm blind.
And then you had the 2-parter at the end. It's just a shame. It's just a damn shame, because with Shooty, again, also he was kind of thrown in the deep end, and at the same time, his first season you could tell he was still relaxing into the role, but when it got to the second, you could see he's really hit his stride, and it's a shame because he burns out literally at the end of the episode, and it kind of leaves you wanting more, and yet you're never gonna see him come back. Like, if Matt Smith isn't gonna come back, he's not gonna come back.
No, nor is Capaldi, unfortunately.
Well, Capaldi, I think that is a different kettle of fish, because with Capaldi, his era was mired in problems. Some controllable, some uncontrollable, but his era had so many problems. I think by the end of it, he became disinterested in the show, and that's why he doesn't want to come back, is because he's kind of burnt those ties to the show now. I think he's happy to watch it as a viewer, but it's kind of like, imagine getting your dream job and then you have your dream job and then everything's taken away from you, or you don't have any creative control, so you have to turn up and say the lines, but you have no input, or you don't care about the story you're trying to make. I feel like Capaldi was one of those where he could see the quality of his stories getting worse and was like, I'm still going to turn in a great performance, but once I'm done with the show, I'm done with it for good. Belinda as well. Belinda annoys me as a companion because she isn't really a companion.
No.
She's incredibly underwritten.
Oh yeah, most definitely. She's probably the most underwritten companion of the New Who era.
Yeah. I know I've seen a lot of people try and defend this, and honestly, it's made me lose respect for humanity, because like Belinda being saddled with a child that A, isn't biologically hers, and B, was a product of a wish by the antagonist. It doesn't make any sense. Because why was Poppy so important? Poppy was never important. It was literally set up in. I mean, I won't say Space Babies was the setup, because it wasn't really the setup. It was just she was in that one. Russell thought she was cute, so he wanted to bring her back. But it doesn't make any sense. And also, everyone hated that episode. So you're bringing back a character from an episode that no one likes. You know, it would be like bringing the twins back from the Twin Dilemma. And apparently, according to some sources, the writers weren't briefed on who Belinda was as a character. They were just given a brief, basic outline, and they had to fill in the blanks. And that made it worse, because every episode with her in it, and you could tell there was a guest writer, she didn't do anything. She was just a lampshade. She was just a part of the set dressing. And it's such a shame.
That sparked off an interview I seen with Peter Purvis, who played Stephen Taylor in Doctor Who from 65 to 66. When he came into Doctor Who, he had his introduction. Then the second story, the writer didn't get the brief that Ian and Barbara had left, so he got the bigger role out of that, which was the Barbara role. So basically, he played the damsel in distress in Galaxy 4.
You've got to think, when you're writing a character, you've got to think, how would they say this? How would they... Even if you don't know who is casting, who's in the... You don't need to know, because the character brief should be just an outline, personality, what they do as a job. Because she was set up as a nurse, but there's only a couple of occasions where she does nursey things, and then the rest of the time she's just there going, "What's happening? What's going on? I don't know. I'm lost in time and space." And it's like, okay, I get that, but you're not making it any easier for me to relate to you.
Yeah.
And it's not even a case of Varada Sethu. She's a great actress, but she annoys me because the writers don't know what to do with her, and therefore she doesn't really know where she fits in. So her performance is off balance because the writers don't know what they're and then it's a domino effect. I thought my Belinda impression was pretty good.
I nearly went into a fit of giggles at that.
For me, Shooty's era is just a symptom of the wider problem with Doctor Who, that the show needs to change and evolve. And it's weird because that's the main theme of the show, and it feels just stagnant because it's not progressing, it's regressing. It's going, let's look at the treasure trove of the last 20 years of New Who, instead of going, let's look forward to see what can we do better and what can we do next and where can we go and what can we do.
Yeah. There's also a leak that was leaked on Reddit, I think. I don't know if you've seen Farry's video on the streaming wars that are going on.
So I did see a little bit of his video, but I got bored. Mainly because I just can't. For me, I'm just. This is why I wanted us to talk about it, because I just feel as if Doctor Who needs to take a break. I know it's the BBC's main moneymaker,
Yeah.
but clearly the BBC don't know what to do with it. Clearly the production team don't know what to do with it. And clearly the streamers are circling like vultures trying to pick at the dead carcass of Doctor Who.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, whenever I hear streaming news, I'm like, well, I know Amazon's out. They've just bought the Bond franchise. It's taken a massive chunk of their finance. They aren't going to be buying Doctor Who anytime soon. Disney are out because they are sort of the harbinger of the chaos that happened in the first place. And personally, if I was in RTD's position, I'd be like, Disney, you kind of made us. You kind of have a part to play in this, and you didn't play your part very well. You know, there's a mountain of issues I could lay at the whole Disney being involved. I knew Disney Who was not going to be fun. That being said, we'll go into it later, but there is something that they could have done that would have been better. But yeah, Netflix. Like, I think Netflix are like the front runners, aren't they?
Yeah, I've heard that. They did have the first 10 series on
Yeah,
Netflix
I remember that.
for quite a long time, didn't they?
It was a rolling contract. Because I remember there was a couple of times where they were going to get rid of it, and then people were watching it, so they were like, okay, we've got to renew it.
I think the BBC wanted it back, the rights.
Yeah, I think because they sold it to HBO. It's currently on HBO, and I think the contract's up until maybe next year. I'm not sure, but I know HBO have had it for a while because they have all the way up to Jodie's last series.
Yeah. Well, if they have that, why don't they just give it to HBO? It would make a bit more sense, wouldn't it?
Okay. Give it over to HBO. Do you know what HBO owned by Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers also own DC Studios. DC Studios have had to have a very big reset because so the last thing I want to do is put the series in American hands.
Yeah.
Because clearly the Americans don't know what to do with all the Americans see when it comes to intellectual property, all they see is dollar signs. They see money, money, money. They do not have the capacity to be creative with it. I'd say the only studio that has ever done something great, and bearing in mind they've had their problems and they continue to, but Paramount.
Yeah, Paramount. I do actually agree with that.
Star Trek.
At least, I'm a big Star Trek fan, as you know, and they have done some creative stuff with the franchise. Some good, some bad. Yeah, some good, some bad, and I'm actually pretty sad Strange New Worlds is getting cancelled.
But the thing is, with Star Trek, I mean, that is just as old as Doctor Who, maybe slightly younger by a couple of years.
Yeah.
I think 66.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's their 60th next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hoping there's something bigger for that, but nah.
Well, this is where it makes sense. If any studio, if any streaming service were to get their grubby little hands on Doctor Who, it would be Paramount, because what was it a couple of years ago where Doctor Who and Star Trek had a collaboration and it was really successful?
Yeah, it was at Comic-Con, I think San Diego.
Yeah, friendship is universal.
Yeah.
I didn't know. But I know it was successful among the fan base. The two fan bases kind of collided.
Yeah, it was. There was like a joint panel with Star Trek and Doctor Who. There was the showrunner Alex Kurtzman, the showrunner of Star Trek, and RTD on that panel, and probably a few others. It's a long time ago. It was a couple of years ago. I think he was just coming back. RTD.
And then RTD was setting up. Yeah, RTD was setting up his era. Star Trek was running along at a good pace. And also we had I think about a decade ago. I know it wasn't overly successful, but it was a push in the right direction. There was the crossover event between Star Trek and Doctor Who in the comic book series where Cybermen and the Borg, I think, teamed up.
Yeah.
And it was it Next Generation?
Yeah, it was Next Generation, Picard, and I think they did one with the original series as well.
Yeah, I think it was original series and it was classic Who.
Next Gen. And
no, it was it Tom
the
Baker?
11th Doctor? I think it Matt Smith was still the Doctor at that point.
Yeah. Oh, more than a decade then. Jeez.
Yeah. But I think it was for the 50th.
I think it was. Yeah, because Doctor Who was reaching their 50th, and then it was going to be Star Trek. So they were kind of pre-anticipating the Star Trek anniversary, but they were celebrating Doctor Who. And I think, and this is the thing, is if Paramount were to take it on board, I wouldn't mind a Doctor Who Star Trek crossover event. I think that would be really cool. You could do Strange New Worlds as like a movie, Star Trek Strange New Worlds the movie, and have Doctor Who in there. They go to the Doctor Who universe.
We're probably going to get some angry comments on that from Doctor Who purists and Star Trek purists. And
I don't care. At this point, Doctor Who is dead in the ground. Grow up. This is the thing, is we are in this age of crossovers and crossover events, and if there are any American studios that would take on the property, I would trust Paramount the most.
Yeah.
I think they're a safe bet. Warner Brothers and Disney are sort of engulfed in flames, but they think it's completely fine. Netflix would just cancel it after 2 series and just be like, oh, no one's watching. I mean, they wouldn't even have the money, the resources to put into Doctor Who. They've only got enough to put Stranger Things on. The rest of Netflix's content is just reality TV shows.
Yeah. Did they buy WWE as well?
I don't think they bought it, but they've entered a partnership with it. And again, like, who's watching that?
I haven't watched it for about 25 years.
Going back onto it, it's like, okay, we know now, or clearly the cat's out the bag, where the BBC have admitted that they're struggling, that they cannot continue in the same regard. So clearly, I was saying this earlier, I can't remember when it was, but there's going to be another review of the BBC soon. Is it 26 or 27?
2027.
2027. So in 2027, there's going to be a review of the BBC and whether the government should keep funding it. I think, and this is going to be very controversial, privatize it. Privatize the BBC. Get rid of it. Stop making it a government-sponsored slugfest. Give it to a company that can actually inject some cash into it. I'm not a fan of privatized. We're going to get down a pretty dark route. I'm not a fan of privatization as a whole. I don't think essential services, water, gas, I don't think those should be privatized services because they provide a function. Same with the NHS. I don't necessarily want in 2029 a party, I'm not going to say who, to come into power to privatize the NHS. I don't think that would be a good use of the public's money or time or resources. But the BBC do not provide they provide more of a service to the world than they do to the British people. Privatize the BBC. Sell the BBC to Paramount.
They already own Channel 5, the UK Channel 5.
What?
Paramount. Yeah.
Precisely. So, Channel 5, I mean, I don't even know how it's still going because I don't know who watches it. Who watches Channel 5? I remember watching Channel 5 about 20 years ago, and that was only to watch, like, Home and Away. I just think there's no hope for the BBC going forward. I don't want to say that as a pessimist, but for me, the BBC provide not really an essential service. They are one of the few things the government could do to shore up some money. We could take the money that we put into the BBC and we could put it back into our NHS.
We've gone way off topic.
I know. I was just thinking that. I was like, oh, I've really opened up my political views.
No, I actually agree with you, to be honest. Is there anything else you want to say about season 2, or shall we just move on?
I want to go over some things I liked. I think it's only fair that we go over some things that we liked, because it's not enough to just say bad, because there is. I'm gonna bleep it out. Don't worry. There are diamonds in the over Shooty's era. What's one thing you liked?
I want to pay tribute to the people we don't see, the behind the scenes people, the set design, the cinematography, the whole production of the series is spectacular. It looks great.
That, yeah.
A lot of these people, they put like serious man hours into how the show looks.
And they've been on the show since its inception. Since 2005.
Yeah, most of them have been on since the beginning of the new run.
And they're fans of the show themselves. Set dressers and prop makers and costume designers and all the workmanship. The cinematography is phenomenal, and Doctor Who has always had the reputation of it has to look cheap, or it when it looks cheap, it's fine. But I feel, and you know, like there's DW Fan 91 who I watch a lot of. He always
so
says,
do I.
you know, Doctor Who, you know, doesn't have to look expensive, but when it does, it looks great, or something to that effect. I'm sort of paraphrasing, but the basic gist is you could trim the budget and you could go back to this era quality. But the problem isn't that it would diminish the series, because oh, imagine if they just used the 60s. I mean, the 60s budget, just model shots. Oh, that would be so fun. Just a TARDIS on a bit of string and they just go.
Yeah, woo!
Yeah, the thing is, they could diminish the budget and the stories. It depends on the writers to fulfill that purpose. But the fact that we've had this upgrade and it's shown that the passion is still there, the fact that, what was it, the bone house, the boneyard, the bone palace was the same set that they used for Robot Revolution.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and you couldn't tell, and it was such a good set that they reused. The unit set, one of the most fantastic sets that I've seen.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I wonder how much that cost.
Well, they're still moaning about it. You know, everything I hear about the production, the higher ups of the production team is, oh, it was so expensive. We've got to get our money's worth. And it's like, okay, but no one was asking you to make a set as big as that. You know, you could have just used a car park in Kent. Or a quarry.
Yeah, or a quarry.
But yeah, the set, I will say, for mine, the costumes. I have loved the costumes. I don't think there's been a bad costume. I'm a bit upset that I think, for me, the idea that the Doctor has an outfit every episode has gotten a little bit silly. It worked for like Rogue, it worked for Devil's Cord, it worked for Wish World, but and obviously the Well, but the Well, that's a costume idea concept that didn't make any sense, because they the whole they have the spacesuits before they even get on the spaceship. But with like Shooty's costume, there should have just been the one that he was in for the giggle, not giggle, the church on Ruby Road. That should have been his main outfit, and then they just, you know, twist it or turn. But I feel like having a completely different outfit wasn't as good, because, you know, there's nothing memorable about that. When you see a silhouette of each Doctor, you know exactly what Doctor that is. If you're a hardcore nerd like ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, you see an outline of Tom Baker and you know that's Tom Baker. You see an outline of Jodie and you know it's Jodie.
Yeah.
You know? And even Jodie had a couple of bits changed to her costume, and it still managed to be cool.
Yeah, in one of the Christmas episodes, New Year episodes, she had a scarf.
She did, and she also had like a different color T-shirt. She had like a navy one, and then she had
Yeah.
like a brighter blue one,
Hmm.
or there was, and also there was a different trim in the jacket as well. So there were little
Mhm.
changes that you go back and you go, "Oh, that was a good choice."
Yeah.
But with Shooty, it's like every episode is a completely different outfit, and I just didn't like. I didn't like it because he just felt like a fashion icon, and that's not what the Doctor is. That's not that doesn't scream core concept of the show that goes, let's go into Shooty's wardrobe and pull out something.
I mean, if they wanted a fashion icon, they'd bring back Romana.
Nah, mate, just dig up John Pertwee. He was the fashion icon of the classic era. I will say that much. I mean, Romana too had some great costumes. But
Like,
yeah,
the schoolgirl outfit she had in City of Death.
that is, yeah. And then she had the one in Meglos, which was like a red dress or like a weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the costumes. I think the downsides were more pick one, stick one. Pick one and stick with it. I don't know what is going on with Doctor Who going forward. You actually have some news on that front, don't you?
There is going to be a Doctor Who animated series made for CBBS. Maybe
CBBS?
Yeah, CBBS.
Not
Not
GBBs.
Yeah, that want to bring younger viewers to Doctor Who again. They kind of slipped off in the last couple of years.
I think it is a great idea. To be honest, this should have happened from the start. This should have happened from maybe end of RTD, start of NAWP. I like the idea of a Doctor Who animated kids show. I feel like it's going to be, like baby Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
I have a really concerned feeling it's going to be similar to that, where it's going to be like all the different Doctors but as babies, and no. I'm thinking about it even more, and it makes me just no.
Or a pup named Scooby Doo. Have you seen that one?
What?
A pup named Scooby Doo. A picture will come up here.
What new Scooby Doo?
No, a pup named Scooby Doo.
Oh, sorry, your audio cut out. A pup named Scooby Doo. Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that one.
No. The last thing I remember of the Scooby Doo franchise was they're doing a live action remake.
What's new Scooby Doo?
And Matthew Lillard isn't in it, and I'm annoyed about that. Matthew Lillard is Shaggy. He will always be Shaggy.
Yeah, forever Shaggy.
The James Gunn films are underrated. I know he didn't direct them, but he wrote them, and they're underrated. But this isn't a Scooby-Doo podcast. This is a Doctor Who. Yeah, the animated series. I mean, to be honest, I've always wanted to see an animated Doctor Who series. There's more you can do in an animated environment than live action.
That was Dreamland.
Oh. That's the Celestial Toymaker that they did a couple of years, a year ago or something. Oh yeah. I mean, I personally think that Doctor Who going animated is a good direction. Should it happen to the main series? Maybe, because, well, to me, the live action budget just keeps getting more and more expensive. With animation, there's so much more that you could do. You could branch out and get different animated studios to do an episode each and have it in a different art style, and that would be interesting. Or do something a bit like, you know, that Predator film that's just come out?
No.
Killer of Killers.
I must have missed that one.
Well, watch it after. Well, then there's a new Predator film, and it's taken place in 3 eras. There's medieval Japan, Viking, and World War II. And it's all about them facing off against the Predator. Amazing concept. Why can't you do that for Doctor Who? Why can't you make a live action film with animated film with 3 different? So there's a past, there's a future, and then there's a space one. You know, animated anthology films. But yeah, that's the kind of it feels like Doctor Who branching out into spin-offs when the main show is unhealthy and at breaking point. It kind of doesn't feel like a good step in the right direction. And also, you had Disney right there. Why didn't you greenlight that instead of the war between the land and the fishy sticks?
Yeah, the fish people from the Underwater Menace.
Yeah, you had Pixar. You had Pixar right there. Hang on. I've got to turn my my charger on. There we go. But you had Pixar right there. Pixar, Walt Disney Animation Studios, and you didn't use them. You greenlit The War Between the Land and the Sea, and if you came out with this animated series a bit quicker, could have had it as a Pixar special.
Yeah. Oh dear me. That's all I've got to say on this subject. So,
dearie me.
See, yeah.
Anyway, that has been Not Another Who Podcast, episode 17. Can you believe we're nearly at 20 episodes?
I know.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Not Another Who Podcast. And we will see you in the next one.
See you later.
Whole outro.